A forgotten kid, buried under labels like failure and hopeless, stands on the edge of giving up forever, until one unexpected voice whispers, "I see you." What happens next could redefine everything you think you know about second chances. But only if you stay to hear how one belief sparked a revolution in a single life. Watch till the end and subscribe. Let's get in fully. The rain battered the cracked windows of the small, sagging house on Maple Street, where Alex Carter sat hunched over a wobbly kitchen table. The dim light of a single bulb flickered above, casting shadows across the worn linoleum floor. At 14, Alex felt the weight of the world pressing down harder than the storm outside. The house smelled of damp wood and yesterday's dinner, a reminder of the endless cycle of making do with less. Alex's mother, Maria, was at her second job, waitressing at the diner until midnight. The absence of her warmth left the house colder than the autumn chill seeping through the walls. Alex stared at the math homework spread across the table, numbers blurring into a meaningless jumble. Equations mocked them, each unsolved problem a silent accusation. You're not good enough. School had never been a refuge for Alex. In the crowded halls of Lincoln Middle School, they were invisible. A skinny kid with second-hand clothes and a backpack held together by duct tape. Alex's grades were a patchwork of DS and FS. Each report card a confirmation of what everyone seemed to believe: Alex Carter was a failure. At school, the days dragged on like an endless sentence. In third-period math, Mr. Jenkins droned on about algebra, his voice a monotone hum that lulled half the class into a stupor. Alex sat at the back, doodling in the margins of their notebook, swirling lines that turned into stars, dreams they couldn't articulate. "Carter!" Mr. Jenkins barked, snapping Alex's pencil to a halt. "Care to tell us the value of X?" The class snickered, and Tyler Reed, the kid with the slick haircut and brand-new sneakers, muttered, "Loser," loud enough for everyone to hear. Alex's cheeks burned, their voice barely a whisper. I don't know." Mr. Jenkins sighed, adjusting his glasses. "Maybe if you paid attention instead of wasting everyone's time, you'd get somewhere." The laughter that followed felt like 1,000 tiny cuts. It wasn't just math. In English, Mrs. Larson handed back essays with red ink bleeding across Alex's pages. "You have potential, Alex, but this is lazy work," she'd said once, her words sharp despite the faint smile. Lazy. The label stuck, whispered by teachers in staff rooms, echoed by classmates in the cafeteria. Alex wanted to scream that it wasn't laziness. How could it be when they stayed up past midnight trying to make sense of fractions or Shakespeare? But the words never came. Instead, they shrank further into themselves, a shadow slipping through the cracks of the world. The bullying didn't help. Tyler Reed and his crew made a sport of targeting Alex. In the locker room, they'd accidentally knock Alex's books to the floor. At lunch, they'd mock the free meal ticket Alex clutched like a badge of shame. "Charity case," Tyler sneered one day, flicking a ketchup packet at Alex's shirt. The red stain bloomed like a wound, and Alex fled to the bathroom, scrubbing at it with rough paper towels until their skin was raw. They stared into the cracked mirror, seeing a face they barely recognized. Eyes too big for their hollow cheeks, hair a mess of untamed curls. "Why am I even here?" they thought. School felt like a battlefield where Alex was always losing. Home wasn't much better. Maria tried her best, but exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. When she was around, she'd ruffle Alex's hair and say, "You're my dreamer, kid. Don't let the world steal that." But dreams felt like luxuries Alex couldn't afford. The bills piled up on the counter, and the landlord's knocks grew louder each month. Maria's shifts left little time for heart-to-hearts, and Alex couldn't bring themselves to add to her burdens. They'd overheard her crying once, on the phone with a friend, saying, "I just want Alex to have a better life than this." The guilt of that moment sat heavy in Alex's chest, a stone they couldn't dislodge. In the quiet of those lonely nights, Alex would lie on their bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. They'd imagine a different life, one where they weren't the kid who failed tests or dodged bullies. Maybe they'd be an artist, sketching worlds no one else could see, or a writer, crafting stories that made people feel less alone. But those dreams felt as distant as the stars outside their window, unreachable and fading with each passing day. School was supposed to be the path to something better, but it felt like a maze with no exit. Every failed quiz, every harsh word from a teacher, chipped away at the little hope Alex had left. One afternoon, after a particularly brutal day, Tyler had tripped and spilled Alex's lunch tray across the cafeteria floor. Alex sat alone on the school's front steps. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy with the promise of more. Alex's backpack lay beside them, unzipped, revealing the crumpled math test with a glaring red F circled at the top. They tore the paper in half, then again, letting the pieces scatter in the wind. What was the point? No one expected them to succeed. Not Mr. Jenkins, not Mrs. Larson, not even themselves. The world had decided who Alex Carter was. A nobody, destined to fade into the background of a town that didn't care. As the last piece of paper fluttered away, Alex buried their face in their hands. The weight of it all, poverty, failure, invisibility, pressed down until it felt like they couldn't breathe. They didn't hear the soft footsteps approaching, didn't see the shadow fall across the steps. But a voice, gentle and steady, broke through the silence. "Rough day, huh?" it said. Alex looked up, startled, into the kind eyes of a woman they'd never seen before. She wore a simple cardigan and a warm smile, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. "I'm Miss Thompson," she said, sitting on the step beside them. "Mind if I join you?" Alex froze, unsure why this stranger cared. They wiped their eyes quickly, mumbling, "I'm fine." But Miss Thompson didn't push or scold. She just sat there, watching the clouds shift in the sky. After a moment, she said, "You know, sometimes the world tries to tell us who we are. But it's wrong more often than you'd think." Her words were soft, but they landed like a spark in the dark. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt seen. The air on the school steps still carried the damp chill of the morning's rain, but for Alex Carter, the world felt a fraction warmer with Ms. Clara Thompson sitting beside them. The new teacher's presence was an anomaly in Alex's world, where adults rarely lingered long enough to notice them. Ms. Thompson's cardigan was a soft gray, fraying slightly at the cuffs, and her eyes held a quiet strength that made Alex feel both exposed and oddly safe. They didn't know why she'd stopped, why she'd chosen to sit with a kid like them, a nobody with a torn backpack and a heart full of cracks. But she did, and that simple act was enough to make Alex's chest ache with something unfamiliar. Hope. Ms. Thompson didn't speak right away. She just sat, her hands folded loosely in her lap, watching the last of the school buses rumble out of the lot. The silence wasn't awkward, though. It was the kind that gave room for thoughts to settle. Alex stole glances at her, expecting her to get up and leave, but she stayed. Finally, she tilted her head toward the scattered pieces of Alex's math test, fluttering across the pavement like broken promises. "Want to tell me what that was about?" she asked, her voice gentle but direct, like she actually wanted to know. Alex shrugged, their shoulders hunching defensively. "It's nothing. Just a stupid test." Their voice cracked, betraying the lie. Ms. Thompson didn't push, but her gaze was steady, not accusing like Mr. Jenkins or pitying like Mrs. Larson's. "Tests can feel like the end of the world sometimes," she said, picking up a torn piece of paper with Alex's messy handwriting on it. "But they're not the whole story. Not even close." Alex didn't know what to say. No one had ever talked to them like this, like their failures weren't the sum of who they were. The next day, Alex noticed Ms. Thompson in the hallways, her presence like a quiet ripple in the chaos of Lincoln Middle School. She was the new English teacher, replacing Mrs. Larson, who'd left for maternity leave. Unlike the other teachers, who seemed to glide through the school with clipped efficiency, Ms. Thompson moved with purpose. She smiled at students, even the ones who slouched past with earbuds in, and she had a way of making the dingy classroom feel brighter. Her desk was cluttered with books, not just textbooks but novels with worn covers, as if she'd read them 100 times. A small potted plant sat on the windowsill, a splash of green against the gray cinder-block walls. In English class, Alex kept their head down, doodling in their notebook as usual. But Ms. Thompson's voice was different, alive, like she was telling a story instead of lecturing. She read a passage from The Outsiders, her words painting a world of greasers and socks that felt as real as Alex's own struggles. When she asked the class what they thought Ponyboy Curtis felt when he lost his parents, Alex's hand twitched, almost raising. They didn't speak. Tyler Reed's smirk from across the room kept their mouths shut, but Miss Thompson's eyes found them anyway. "Alex, what do you think?" she asked, her tone warm, not demanding. The room went quiet. Tyler snorted, and Alex's stomach twisted. I don't know," they mumbled, eyes glued to their desk. They braced for the usual, a sigh, a dismissal, but Ms. Thompson just nodded. That's okay. Sometimes it's hard to put feelings into words. But I bet you've got a lot to say if you give yourself a chance. She moved on, but her words lingered, like a door left slightly ajar. That afternoon, Alex lingered in the classroom, pretending to organize their backpack as the other students filed out. Ms. Thompson was erasing the chalkboard, humming softly. When she turned and saw Alex still there, she didn't rush them out. "Something on your mind?" she asked, setting the eraser down. Alex hesitated, their fingers twisting the strap of their bag. "Why do you care?" they blurted, the question sharper than they meant. "I mean, I'm not good at this stuff. English, school, any of it. Everyone knows that." Ms. Thompson leaned against her desk, her expression softening. "You know, Alex, I've been teaching for 10 years, and I've learned one thing. The kids who think they're not good are usually the ones with the most to offer. They just haven't found their spark yet." She paused, her eyes searching Alex's. "I see something in you. Something strong, even if you don't see it yet. And I'm not going anywhere until you do." Her words hit like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. Alex didn't know how to respond, so they just nodded, their throat tight. Over the next few weeks, Ms. Thompson became a steady presence. She didn't single Alex out in a way that felt embarrassing, but she noticed them. When Alex turned in a half-finished essay, she didn't scrawl a red F across it. Instead, she wrote, "Good start, Alex. Let's talk about how to make this even stronger." She'd catch them after class, offering small tips or asking about their day. Once, when Tyler tripped Alex in the hall, spilling their books, Ms. Thompson was there, helping gather them up without a word about the incident. Her quiet support was like a shield, small but steady. One rainy afternoon, Alex skipped lunch to avoid Tyler's crew and ended up in the empty classroom, staring at a blank journal page Ms. Thompson had assigned. "Write about something real," she'd said. "Something that matters to you." Alex's pencil hovered, then pressed to the paper, spilling out words about their mother's tired smile, the house that creaked like it was giving up, the dreams they buried under fear. When they finished, their hands shook. They didn't turn it in, too raw, too much. But Ms. Thompson saw them writing. "That's it, Alex," she said softly, passing by. "That's where the magic starts." By the end of the month, Alex didn't dread English class anymore. They still struggled, still felt the weight of their life pressing down. But Ms. Thompson's belief was a crack of light in the dark. It wasn't a cure, it didn't erase Tyler's taunts or the red ink on their math tests, but it was something. A seed, fragile but growing, that maybe, just maybe, they weren't invisible after all. The fluorescent lights in Ms. Thompson's classroom buzzed faintly, but to Alex Carter, they seemed to hum with a new kind of energy. It had been a month since Ms. Thompson sat with them on the school steps, her words planting a fragile seed of belief in their heart. That seed hadn't sprouted into confidence overnight. Alex still carried the weight of their struggles like a backpack stuffed with bricks, but something was shifting. English class, once a place to hide, was becoming a space where Alex felt a flicker of possibility. Ms. Thompson's steady presence was like a lighthouse, guiding them through the fog of self-doubt, even if the shore still felt far away. Ms. Thompson had a way of making learning feel less like a punishment. She didn't just teach, she invited. One day, she announced a class project. Write a short story about a character who overcomes a challenge. It doesn't have to be perfect, she said, her eyes sweeping the room but lingering on Alex. It just has to be yours. The other students groaned or smirked. Tyler Reed muttered something about stupid busywork, but Alex felt a spark. Writing had always been their secret escape, the doodles and half-finished poems in their notebook a way to make sense of the world. But sharing it? That was terrifying. Ms. Thompson didn't let Alex shrink away. After class, she handed them a small notebook, its cover a deep blue with stars embossed in silver. "For your ideas," she said with a smile. "No pressure, just a place to start." Alex clutched the notebook like a treasure, though they didn't admit it. That night, at the wobbly kitchen table in their cramped house, Alex wrote. The words came haltingly at first, a story about a kid named Sam who lived in a town where no one saw him, who dreamed of building a rocket to escape to the stars. Each sentence felt like peeling back a layer of their own heart, raw and real. When their mother, Maria, came home from the diner, she found Alex still writing, the clock ticking past midnight. "You're working hard, dreamer," she said softly, kissing their forehead. Alex didn't reply, but her words warmed them. In class, Ms. Thompson started giving Alex extra attention, but not in a way that drew Tyler's taunts. She'd stop by their desk, pointing out a strong sentence or suggesting a new word to try. "You've got a knack for imagery, Alex," she said once, tapping their latest assignment. "This line about the sky breaking open, it's powerful." Alex's cheeks flushed, unused to praise. They mumbled a thanks and ducked their head, but inside, something stirred. It wasn't confidence, not yet, but it was close, a belief that maybe they could be good at something. The turning point came during the class's short story presentations. Alex dreaded reading aloud, their stomach knotting at the thought of Tyler's inevitable jeers. When their turn came, they stood at the front, clutching their crumpled pages, voice barely above a whisper. The story of Sam and his rocket stumbled out, awkward but honest. The class was silent, not the mocking silence Alex feared, but something attentive. When they finished, Ms. Thompson clapped first, her smile wide. "That was beautiful, Alex. You made us feel Sam's dreams." A few classmates nodded, and even Jordan Kim, a quiet kid who sat near the window, gave a small thumbs up. Tyler rolled his eyes but stayed silent, and for once, Alex didn't care. They sat down, heart pounding, feeling taller than they ever had. Ms. Thompson didn't stop there. She started a writing club after school, and when Alex hesitated to join, she gently nudged. "You don't have to read anything out loud if you're not ready," she said. "Just come and write." Alex showed up, sitting in the back with their starry notebook. Jordan was there too, scribbling poems about the ocean, and over time, the two started talking. Jordan's easy smile and lack of judgment made Alex feel less alone, like maybe they could have a friend in this place. The small wins piled up. Alex's grades in English crept from DS to CS, then AB on a poetry assignment. Ms. Thompson framed it on the classroom wall, next to other students' work, and seeing their name there felt like a badge of honor. At home, Alex showed the poem to Maria, who teared up. "This is you, Alex," she said, taping it to the fridge. "This is my dreamer." For the first time, Alex believed her, even if just a little. But it wasn't all smooth. Math and science were still battlegrounds, with Mr. Jenkins' size and red ink tests reminding Alex of their limits. One day, after bombing a quiz, Alex skipped English class, hiding in the library's back corner. They felt like a fraud. Ms. Thompson's faith was a gift they didn't deserve. When the bell rang, they expected to slip out unnoticed, but Ms. Thompson found them, her expression more concerned than angry. "You weren't in class today," she said, sitting across from them. "Everything okay?" Alex stared at the table, shame burning their throat. "I'm not like you think I am," they muttered. "I'm not smart. I failed another quiz. I'm still me." Ms. Thompson leaned forward, her voice firm but kind. "Alex, you're not defined by one quiz or one bad day. You're learning, growing. That's what matters. I'm not here because I think you're perfect. I'm here because I know you're capable." She slid a new assignment across the table, a prompt about resilience. "Write about someone who keeps going, even when it's hard. I think you know a lot about that." That night, Alex wrote again, their words sharper, fueled by Ms. Thompson's belief and their own stubborn spark. They didn't know it yet, but they were changing, not into someone new, but into the person they'd always been beneath the fear. The seed Ms. Thompson planted was taking root, fragile but stubborn, reaching for light. The classroom window framed a gray November sky, the kind that promised snow but held back, leaving the world in a restless chill. Alex Carter sat at their desk in Ms. Thompson's English class, the starry notebook open, their pencil tracing hesitant words. The past few months had been a slow climb, small victories in writing, a B on an essay, even a tentative friendship with Jordan Kim. Ms. Thompson's belief had kindled a spark in Alex, a fragile confidence that maybe they weren't destined to fade into the background. But that spark was about to be tested, and the weight of it pressed against Alex's chest like a storm gathering strength. The school was buzzing with talk of the annual district writing contest, a chance for students to submit stories or essays for a scholarship prize. Ms. Thompson had announced it weeks ago, her eyes bright with encouragement. "This is your moment, Alex," she'd said privately, handing them a flyer. "Your stories have heart. Let the world see it." Alex had blushed, tucking the flyer into their backpack, but the idea had taken root. They'd spent nights crafting a story about a kid who built a makeshift telescope to find a lost star, pouring their own dreams and fears into every line. For the first time, they imagined winning, not just for the prize but to prove, to themselves, to Ms. Thompson, to their mother Maria, that they could be more than a failure. But the world had a way of pushing back. The day before the contest deadline, Alex sat in math class, staring at a midterm exam returned with a red F slashed across the top. Mr. Jenkins didn't even look at them as he handed it back, muttering, "You need to try harder, Carter." The word stung, slicing through the fragile confidence Ms. Thompson had nurtured. Tyler Reed, catching sight of the grade, snickered from the next row. "Nice one, loser," he whispered, loud enough for half the class to hear. "Stick to doodling." The laughter that followed felt like a wave crashing over Alex, drowning the spark they'd started to trust. After school, Alex skipped the writing club, unable to face Ms. Thompson's hopeful gaze. They wandered to the edge of the school's soccer field, where the grass was patchy and the bleachers rusted. Sitting alone, they pulled out their contest story, the pages creased from countless revisions. The words blurred as tears welled up. "What's the point?" they thought, crumpling the edges. The scholarship, the praise, the dreams, they all felt like lies. Tyler was right. Mr. Jenkins was right. They were just a kid from a broken-down house, destined to fail. They tore the first page in half, then stopped, hands shaking, as footsteps crunched behind them. "Alex!" Ms. Thompson's voice was soft but steady, cutting through the haze. She stood a few feet away, her coat buttoned against the cold, her eyes searching. "Jordan said you didn't show up to the club. I got worried." Alex wiped their faces quickly, shoving the torn story into their backpack. "I'm fine," they mumbled, but their voices cracked, betraying them. Miss Thompson sat on the bleacher beside them, unbothered by the damp metal. "Doesn't look fine," she said gently. "Want to tell me what's going on?" The words spilled out before Alex could stop them, bitter, raw, like a wound torn open. "I failed again. Math. Another stupid F. Everyone's right about me. I'm not smart. I'm not good enough for your contest or your stories or any of this. I'm just me." They gestured at their worn sneakers, their patched jacket, as if their life was proof of their inadequacy. "You're wasting your time." Ms. Thompson listened, her face calm but her eyes fierce with something Alex couldn't name. When they finished, she leaned forward, her voice low and unwavering. "Alex, listen to me. I failed plenty of times when I was your age. I grew up in a house not much different from yours, with a mom who worked double shifts and a dad who wasn't around. I failed tests, got laughed at, felt like giving up. But someone, a teacher, like I'm trying to be for you, saw something in me. And I see it in you." She paused, letting the words sink in. Success isn't about never falling. It's about getting up, every single time. Alex stared at the ground, her words battling the storm in their head. "But what if I can't?" they whispered. Miss Thompson reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn book, a journal, its pages yellowed. "This was mine when I was 14, she said. "Full of bad poems and big dreams. I didn't win every contest, but I kept writing. You don't have to be perfect, Alex. You just have to keep going." She tapped the torn story peeking from Alex's backpack. "That story. It's worth finishing. You're worth it." Something shifted in Alex, small but seismic. They didn't feel fixed, but they felt seen. Ms. Thompson's belief wasn't a magic wand. It didn't erase the failed test or Tyler's taunts, but it was a lifeline. That night, Alex sat at the kitchen table, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. They smoothed out the torn page of their story, taping it back together with trembling hands. They wrote until dawn, rewriting the ending where the kid found their star, not because it was easy but because they refused to let it stay lost. The next morning, Alex slipped the story into Ms. Thompson's mailbox at school, their hearts pounding. They didn't know if they'd win, or even place, but for the first time, they felt like they'd fought for something. The scholarship deadline was met, but the real test was inside Alex, a battle to believe they could keep going, no matter how many times they fell. The auditorium at Lincoln Middle School was packed, the air thick with anticipation and the faint scent of polished wood. Alex Carter stood backstage, their hands clutching a folded piece of paper, heart thudding like a drum. It was the district writing contest ceremony, and Alex's story, the one about the kid who built a telescope to find a lost star, had made it to the final round. They hadn't expected to get this far, not after the torn pages, the failed math test, the nights when giving up felt easier than pushing forward. But Ms. Clara Thompson's belief had carried them here, a steady hand guiding them through the storm of self-doubt. Now, standing in the wings, Alex felt both terrified and alive, as if their dreams were finally within reach. The past month has been a whirlwind. Submitting the story had been a leap of faith, fueled by Ms. Thompson's words on the bleachers. "You're worth it." Alex had poured everything into that story, every late night at the kitchen table, every moment of fear and hope, every memory of their mother, Maria, calling them her dreamer. When Ms. Thompson called to say they'd placed in the contest, Alex hadn't believed her at first. "You're a finalist, Alex," she'd said, her voice brimming with pride. "You did this." The scholarship prize, $1,000 toward college, felt like a distant star, but being here in this moment was a victory all its own. As the MC called their name, Alex stepped onto the stage, the spotlight harsh against their worn sneakers and borrowed blazer. The audience blurred into a sea of faces. Classmates, teachers, even Maria, who'd taken a rare night off from the diner. Tyler Reed was there too, slouched in the back, but his smirk didn't reach Alex anymore. They unfolded their story, voice shaky at first, and began to read. The words flowed, painting a world of a kid who refused to let the darkness win. The auditorium was silent, then erupted in applause when Alex finished. They looked out and saw Ms. Thompson in the front row, clapping fiercely, her eyes shining with tears. When the winners were announced, Alex didn't take first place. Another student's essay won the scholarship, but they earned an honorable mention, a certificate, and a moment they'd never forget. Ms. Thompson met them backstage, pulling them into a hug. "I always knew you could do it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is just the beginning, Alex." Maria joined them, her dinner uniform peeking out under her coat, and whispered, "I'm so proud of you, dreamer." For the first time, Alex believed them both, not because they'd won, but because they'd dared to try. Years later, Alex stood in a different place, a college lecture hall, now 22, a creative writing major with a notebook full of stories. The sagging house on Maple Street was a memory, though Maria still lived there, her smile brighter now that Alex was building a future. Alex had graduated high school with decent grades, not perfect but enough, thanks to Ms. Thompson's lessons in resilience and Jordan's quiet friendship. The contest hadn't made them rich, but it had unlocked something deeper, a belief in their own voice. Now, as a teaching assistant, Alex mentored students who reminded them of their younger self, kids who felt invisible, weighed down by life's burdens. One evening, Alex visited Lincoln Middle School for a guest talk at the writing club Ms. Thompson still ran. The classroom hadn't changed much, the same cinder block walls, the same potted plant on the windowsill, but Ms. Thompson's warmth filled it as always. After the talk, Alex stayed behind, helping stack chairs. "You changed my life," they told her, the words heavy with years of gratitude. "You saw me when no one else did." Ms. Thompson smiled, her eyes crinkling. "You were always there, Alex. I just helped you see yourself." As Alex drove home, the starry notebook, now tattered but cherished, sat on the passenger seat. They thought of the kid they'd been, the one who tore up tests and hid from the world. They thought of Ms. Thompson's journal, her own story of struggle and survival. And they thought of the students they now taught, each one carrying their own hidden light. Alex knew what they wanted to do, be the believer for someone else, the way Ms. Thompson had been for them. The night sky stretched above, vast and full of stars. Alex parked outside their mother's house, the familiar creak of the porch welcoming them home. They opened their notebook, penning a dedication for their first published story, set to appear in a campus literary magazine. "To Ms. Thompson, who taught me that one person's belief can change everything." Closing the notebook, Alex looked up at the stars, no longer out of reach but guiding lights for the path ahead. They'd fallen, countless times, but they'd gotten up. And now, they'd help others do the same.